Club. It is Pixie. This is Jill mostly with a couples chatting around. Happy friggin' New Year! It is 2023. This is the first Pixie Locks channel video of 2023 and I am just so thrilled to be back. I have never been so invested in the new year and so rejuvenated and so like I am taking this so seriously, like my life starts today. It's also a lot of pressure on me to the point where I've been like rocking back and forth with fear because I'm like my life has to start today. Anyway, I hope you're doing good. This video is going to be a DID system update, my personal mental health journey. So I hope you are ready for a little bit of a sit down personal chat to start off the year. So I'll just get right to it. I'm sure it's in the friggin' title and thumbnail. We had our first fusion as a DID system. Fusion is something that happens when two alters combine and become one. As far as I understand, this is almost always a positive thing because it indicates healing and growth, lowering those amnesia walls. You would usually achieve fusion or some levels of fusion through trauma work, therapy. So there's integration and fusion. And these are two words that can be mixed up. I think I've mixed them up by accident before, but integration is the act of parts getting closer, so they're kind of similar, but more so just they have better communication, they're getting to know each other. Sometimes you can have two different alters in a system that don't know they exist at all, they're not aware of each other. So integration would be those parts becoming aware of each other and then maybe being able to start opening up a dialogue and talk back and forth, maybe even through external means like a journal. We have gained a lot better internal talking back and forth through therapy, trauma processing, EMDR, time. And then fusion would be when those two parts actually, they don't really have a need to be separate anymore. They don't need to protect each other maybe from things that they used to need to protect each other from. The memories can be shared now without the host or body being in peril. And then they create a new part that often has traits from both of the previous two individual parts or alters. So this is our first fusion that we've been aware of. Again, I only became aware of my system and my DID and stuff in the past like year and a bit, couple years. So I can only imagine, I think Cliff was talking about this, that stuff happened before and there were fusions and splits and integrations of parts that we just were never aware of, but this is our first fusion that we've gotten by like really working together and doing a lot of trauma work and a lot of inner stuff. The alter that I fused with is not one that I was aware of before. It's not one that has been active or introduced themselves to me, to anyone in my life, let alone social media. Cliff, Jer, Veronica, Flora, everyone is still around. This was a part that came out of dormancy from my middle school years, and the thing that triggered them out, I'll get into it. The whole thing, I'm excited to talk to you about it because it's been a lot. I don't know. I feel like no one will really understand other than other folks with DID. So one big thing that I want to mention before I go into talking about my whole journey of my first fusion is the concept of final fusion versus functional multiplicity, and just kind of how different folks with DID or OSDD feel about final fusion, or even like fusion at all. Final fusion is a goal some people have, which is the fusing of all parts so that you are essentially one consciousness, one identity, no amnesia, no voices. You could still have dissociative symptoms, you could still definitely have PTSD symptoms. My understanding is that the other symptoms that you've been sheltered from other parts would get more intense. Like if I suddenly fused into one person, which wouldn't happen overnight, but if it did, I would have all of the viciousness and severity of Jer's high emotions and BPD and chronic suicidality. I would have these childlike, I would be confused. If I had all of these different things that my system holds just souped into one right now with no internal work, no healing, no processing, no like therapy, I would not be functioning at all. And that's why I'm a system. But anyway, that's the concept of final fusion, is basically becoming one again. And that is definitely not something that every person with DID or OSDD aims for. Some people are like very vehemently against it and they just want to live multiply, functionally, which is called functional multiplicity. That is something that I think we're working towards kind of, so we go in and out of being functionally multiple depending on if there's like big life stressors, which there have been too many of. I'm ready for a year of goodness, please. But yeah, it makes sense that any mental health symptoms would flare up under severe stress, I guess. I would say we are mostly functionally multiple right now. So my personal healing goal and DID therapy life mental health healing journey is that I am aiming right now for functional multiplicity, which for me is likely going to include some more fusions and of course more integration. Integration is always a good thing. That's just getting to know your folks and your parts and chatting and talking, sharing memories, lowering amnesia. I love remembering things. I love not being confused. I love recognizing my face in the mirror. Those are all major pluses. But my alters are not something that I want to get rid of or throw away. My alters themselves are such a small part of dissociative identity disorder. There are so many other symptoms and factors. The PTSD is such a huge part of it, and that won't go away if my alters go away. The alters help with the PTSD, with the BPD. So anyway, I just wanted to talk about that before I ramble on about my first fusion, because a lot of folks will say final fusion isn't possible or real is something I've heard. I know about that. I definitely think it's possible, and if that happens, I would definitely not run away from it. I am open to whatever healing is most natural and whatever's best for my brain. If that's final fusion, great. If it's functional multiplicity, great. Let's talk about my very first fusion! Like I mentioned briefly, this alter is one that was dormant that I was not aware of. Basically, she was a tween-age, 13-year-old, innocent, joyful, but traumatized, small version of me. She was and stayed the age that the body was when she formed. I don't owe to the internet to explain the trauma of every part that exists. Some may feel comfortable doing that. All you need to know is that she was a part that held some trauma and was very fragile from middle school, who ended up, I guess, just being dormant or staying locked away for a long time until we were ready to face that trauma and deal with it. The first moment that I felt the spark of something being up, of something happening, was when Stevie and I were at our friend's place having a little sip before we went up to a drag show. And my mom messaged me this photo of one of my old journal entries because I had asked her to go looking around for a big pile of our old sketchbooks from middle school because I wanted to dig around in there and see if there were any hints of parts, any pieces of puzzles from the past, any little plural pieces. Just right now that I'm going through all of this trauma work and all of this past analyzing to like sort myself out as I am now, I think that's the gold mine. That's all my emo poetry. Like, let's go. Bring me that. But my mom sent me a picture of this journal entry that just starts with, I think I have multiple personality disorder. I really f***ing do. And that's not the only one that says my multiple personalities, multiple parts, like I want to be whole one day. It was suddenly information to me that even though I didn't know I had DID, a part of me, some parts of me were very aware of exactly what was going on in middle school, which is like, it was mind-shattering. It was world-breaking to me. It absolutely changed everything. It absolutely changed everything. I thought I might find some pictures of an emo boy who kind of looks like Jer. I thought I might find some like kissy marks with an XOXOV. I didn't think I would find journal entries that say I have multiple personality disorder. It just blew everything open. That was the event that seemed to break Ramona out of dormancy. Ever since this moment, I felt very different. I think other folks with DID will get this, and I feel like if you don't have DID or OSDD, there's no way you could. But it's almost like my brain and my mind is in a whole different space. It's drenched in a different color and a different smell, and it sees things differently. It's almost like different rooms, but it's just your brain. And when I was a teenager and stuff, and I guess when I was a teenager and I didn't have the words and I didn't know I had multiple personalities, I would call it headspaces shifting. I would say I'm in a really dark headspace. I'm in a weird headspace. I need to shift out of this headspace. And I actually wrote myself like a guide on how to get out of it. Literally a step-by-step guide on how to shift one headspace into another. Help. And it was like, are you bored and depressed? Screw that. Go get your crafting supplies. Like, okay, Flora. But I felt this undeniable shift in my headspace after that day, that night when my mom sent me that message, and it lasted for like a month and a half as this very slow, gentle process happened where after like 3-4 days of feeling weird, I go to Stevie and I say, this is how I go to Stevie. Anytime I feel a tickle of something weird going on up there, I'll say, okay, maybe not. It could be anything. Okay, it could be nothing but. And then I just say whatever is going on so that if it turns into something, you know, this is where it started percolating. Because this whole thing is very confusing, and I never speak with certainty until I give it like a long amount of time, until someone's like yelling at me in there. I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a therapist, I'm just the person with DID. So I have to kind of like analyze what's going on and learn as much as I can and know what's going on and ask like the people in my life and be like, huh? But again, that's why I give it a lot of time. I just speak very openly and directly about what I'm experiencing. My senses feel different. My home doesn't feel like my home. It feels like I just got time travel transported here from middle school. It really felt like I was middle school me walking around my adult grown apartment that I would get in the future. It felt really, really, really bizarre at first. I remember it. I remember sitting outside in the crunchy fall leaves and the air, everything is different. And it's not just fall. It's not just seasons changing. But it was like I had a whole new brain and I had time traveled here and I was seeing a lot of my town for the first time. It's really bizarre to feel it happen and slowly, I'd say the whole process from coming out of dormancy to realizing she was safe, things were different, we're aware now, we're connected now, we're a family now, and the process of her realizing she was safe enough to fuse with me. That took about a month and a half. How did I start that sentence? Anyway, it's hard to talk about any of this without just like I don't know if I've ever heard of this exact pattern happening with another system. I know everyone with DID or OSDD is different. I guess it just made sense that it was just a small dormant part that was just out of the picture for so long, and then suddenly it's like the puzzle box was opened, and then over about a month and a half someone took the puzzle piece very slowly and locked it in. And I had never fused before, or that I was aware of. So it was a completely foreign feeling to me, but because it was a new feeling, and because, you know, I really had to check in with myself like every day. How are you feeling? What's going on? Be real. Be really, really real with me. And the way that my experience shifted from this isn't my house, I feel like I feel like I time traveled here and I'm looking at my future home. I feel like even sometimes my partner is my partner or my friends aren't my friends. I feel like my senses are all different. I feel like everything's a slightly different color or something. The way that that slowly shifted into I feel more present. I feel less derealization, less depersonalization. I can listen to old music that for the last 8-10 years has been really triggering. Like, turn it off. I could now listen to fully and enjoy. And it does kind of feel like I'm back then, but in a warm and comforting way, where it's not triggering me to leave my body, it's reminding me of home. I feel less afraid to say things that aren't like cool and to be a little like cringe. That was cringe and I'm unafraid. Well, right now I'm a little bit afraid. Can listen to old music and visit trauma trigger places. That's another big one. The last time that I visited home, my mom and I went up for a drive around, and she ended up driving around just this area that is very full of places that are tied to direct traumas, direct assaults, direct memories and situations. And it's pretty blurry, but I think I just kind of started like, I think I just kind of like zoned out a bit and then zoned back in. It was always really impossible and really painful for me to drive around places like my hometown's downtown, which is hard because my home province is very small and it's just that town. So it's like, where else do you go? I can go around there now. I can go home. I can, even just in my parents' house, I noticed a lot at Christmas. This was my first Christmas after fusion, so it's my first time visiting home around the holidays, post my first fusion, and I felt like I was home in a safe way. I felt like I had a new mind that was safer and clearer and less afraid, less dissociated, way less depersonalization, way less derealization. I cannot stress that enough. I recognize my face in the mirror more. I feel like my surroundings are real more. I feel like with DID, this part gets overshadowed by the whole alters and different personalities thing is something that's so like so unique that you can see so clearly from the outside, but oh my god, do I almost never feel like a real person. And it's amazing. It's amazing. It's really nice. That's why I will never get people who are like super anti-fusion because they feel like it's anti-multiplicity. Like, I just think she was ready to hear what I had learned. And she just hadn't been around to get that info. She had been dormant and locked out and just kind of like a frozen little statue for years and years and years. And then the second that we got those journals and we got that information, she could see and hear again, and she was around again. And we realized that we have everything to keep you safe. We've learned everything to work this out. And I don't need to be separate from you anymore. It's so weird! It's so weird. When you become aware of your DID and you fucking start feeling shit happen like this, it's so weird. I can also see more clearly inner world, which is interesting. So not only do I feel like I see more clearly and feel real in this outer physical world, but I can see more clearly and feel more real and walk around and access more of my inner world. For a while we were kind of locked in, and it was the same pattern of every night I would check in. It would be Cliff and I on the couch, and like Jer would like scutter down from the hallway and Veronica would go hi sometimes, and like sometimes we would go visit Flora, and sometimes, you know, it was very much the same like 4 things we would do to communicate. And now I can walk around, I can see more, it's more clear. The levels of clarity I have in my inner world fluctuate so much depending on which parts are like fronting. But it's just overall been a lot more clear, which is so much better for communication. So, everything's so good! Everything's so much better! I also have interest in old hobbies again that went like dormant for a long time, which was really bizarre. I am a pianist. I have been learning piano and playing piano since I was 4 friggin' years old, and for a long time it was like the only defining thing about my personality and self is that I was like slightly freakishly good at the piano, especially for such a young child. And it was like I had so much pride in this to the point where if anyone was ever better at me in piano, like it shattered my world. Anyway, and then so I started doing classical, and then that became just so much. It was just because I could. It was like because I have this skill. I should do the most impressive thing possible. So I'd learn my Bach and like do the whole thing, and then I realized I don't enjoy this. And I just started like basically stimming by playing piano and singing and learning by ear. I'm rambling a lot, but piano was a huge part of my life. I was in a band, I have a ton of songs I've written, and I just lost that. Like I still have the ability, but it feels like it's not in my, I don't know, it's really hard to explain it. We have a piano in our townhouse and I've plugged it in and played it maybe 3 times over the last 4.5 years. It is actually sad. I also got really shy and insecure about my drawing and like visual digital art skills. And anyway, since this fusion, I felt this huge resurgence of that old middle school passion of like just not being afraid to just sit down and draw whatever comes to my mind, or sit down and just play piano and just not have this immense pressure on myself or something. I don't know. There was this like wall. There was like a huge blockage wall between me and some of these activities that I used to hugely enjoy. And the wall is gone, I think is a good way to describe it. Like not only is the wall gone, but I feel drawn to it again. It's so wonderful. It's so wonderful, especially with drawing, because that's something I can share with you guys a lot more. Yeah, I feel creative and unafraid like I used to. Previous Jillian had become motionless with fear. I'm less afraid to make mistakes now and grow as an artist. Oh, my fashion sense is also like lookbook.new renaissance. I guess that's a good way to put it. I also feel less afraid to experiment more in like annoying ways with fashion. I don't know. I feel like that's also inspired by like TikTok a little bit, because there's this whole like fruits revival. People are like wearing shirts as skirts and layering, like they're like shoving keychains on their belt buckle, and I don't know, people are doing weird fashion stuff and it's extremely inspiring. So I've been definitely enjoying a lot more like getting a little freaky with it. This outfit is not freaky. This outfit is very normal, you know, 2 layered things, calming down. But I don't know, just being a lot, I feel like I'm breaking out of a stale and dusty fashion cycle, and I'm really like excited about it again. Okay, I wanna go watch Drag Race. I'm not trying to hijack your video at the end. Oh, one big important thing I should probably mention is that I'm still going by Jillian. Definitely. Her name is Ramona. Oh, I didn't mention this. I didn't really talk a lot about what she looked like, or maybe, okay, maybe I'll record for a little bit more just because this will probably be the only time I really talk about Ramona, and she deserves to like have her tiny moment in the sun now that she's like slurped into my brain, slurped into the psyche. Alternate DID channel name. But yeah, I'm still gonna go by the name Jillian. Ramona got her name from Ramona Flowers from Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, and I know that that is like that movie. That movie inspired and ruined a generation. But my partner at the time, it was our song and we would like listen to it and it was like, "You're my Ramona." I know this is cringe, I know it is, but it's the truth and I'm not lying to you. If I was lying to you, I would not have an alter named after Ramona Flowers, okay? I would do some editing. She looks just like me, like I did in middle school. She has blue hair in a pixie cut. She's a tiny little stick of a thing. She wears like black band t-shirts and the same pair of red plaid skinny jeans every single day. She has braces that her like mouth can barely cover, and she looks just like we physically did back then. And I did this very crude drawing, but this thing happened in her world one night where I think it's so bizarre how the brain visualizes things, but I think this is when she really started to be fusing into me. It literally looked like 2 overlaid like Photoshop files. She was like a transparent blue ghost, like slightly adjacent to me but over me. It's weird. It's very weird how the brain communicates and visualizes things for you, but that's when I was like, oh, I see, that's Quite on the nose. Okay, thank you. Yeah, some of the music we've been able to listen to again is like specific Cure songs, specific Metric songs. Old Paramore used to be really unbelievably painful for us to listen to, and now we have access to all that. Ignorance is your new best friend. The amount that I'm dating myself with all of this, I'm like, DeviantArt, DeviantArt, and Paramore, and what was the other thing? Scofield versus the World! But hey, okay, your brain is gonna latch onto whatever is cool and comforting to you in that time when you're going through crazy wild shit. So yeah, I'll have like a small Ramona appreciation moment here, just so we know, you know, just to give a little heart emoji to this part of me that kept me safe, and to welcome her into my sweet little psyche. Welcome, friend. I feel great. I love recognizing myself in the mirror more. I love feeling present in my space. I love feeling less afraid. I do have a couple negative, like, shynesses. Hi, I just want to jump in here while I'm editing because I have a couple of other notes that were brought up mostly by Stevie. Obviously, as my partner and a person who lives with us, they see things that maybe I don't from an outside perspective. And they brought these up like organically, not just because of the whole fusion thing, but I realized they are 100% changes in me that have happened because of this. Mostly they noticed a shift in my romantic patterns, and they asked if any of my, like, preferences have changed, like my sexual identity. Ramona definitely is a lesbian, and she holds a lot of trauma around our first relationship, which was a woman-loving woman, child-girl-loving child-girl relationship. So I think I was just adjusting to that over the past, like, month and a half, 2 months. It's definitely not something that I noticed or did intentionally, but I guess they noticed from the outside that I was a lot more withdrawn, which is sad, but it's good that, you know, I can be aware of that and help process her trauma that I now hold to work through that a bit. Another big change is that my ability to mask is absolutely zero. Stevie noted that I've been consistently different in the way that I react to their usual banter, and I find it notably harder to multitask, and I need to stim a lot openly a lot more. I can't mask on my face very well either. I have a lot less control over just the way that I am. I think I had a lot of years of like masking and social mimicry built up so that I could kind of blend in with everyone else, and that's all gone now. So I guess, you know, I'm safe to be like that now because I work from home, I'm not in school, I can just kind of like be openly myself and move my body the way I need to move it. I can stim, I can dance, I can move around. My partner knows that, like, if I don't laugh at a joke or if my face doesn't look the right way, I don't hate them. I don't think their joke's not funny. I've been really struggling with, like, the way my brain works. I can't change gears as quickly as I used to, and I can't mask like I used to. And just a lot more kind of general anxiety feels a bit more raw. Again, it feels like there was a little bit of a wall, of a barrier that protected me from some of, like, the super high, like, young, like, I'm scared and young, early middle school, like, whole life ahead of me kind of fears. And it doesn't help that I actually am 24 and, like, it is adult time now, and, like, we do live in a townhouse, so there's a little bit extra just, like, constant generalized anxiety. We have really severe GAD, so that's another thing that is different that I'll just be working on, kind of settling into this new fusion and these new traits that I have that are not necessarily positive, but that I'm in a safe space to handle now. Okay, back to past Pixie. But a lot of that trauma that she held, none of the information was new to me. It was just emotions about it, and feelings about it stored in a different place. So, yeah, it's overall just a really positive experience. And like I said, I'm not aiming for final fusion or anything directly, but if fusion is gonna make me feel this much, like, safer and present and good and capable, I would welcome a little bit more of this healing energy into my future. So yeah, thank you for sitting here and listening to me talk about, like, the most personal thing possible. Wow. And I love you. Yeah, I just love you. Okay, I'm gonna go with lol. I love you guys very, very, very much. Thank you so much for watching. I am, like I said, very motivated and overjoyed and full of plans and goodness for this whole year, so I hope you'll stick with us. I think 2023 is gonna be good. I'm gonna knock on wood, but I think it's gonna be good. I just realized there's neighbors over there. That's okay. I wouldn't knock on the wall to say hello. Anyway, I love you. Thank you so much for watching this video. And I love you guys so, so much. And I will see you in the next video, which is not this one because this one's over. Bye.